September 20, this day in history. I'm going to spend another day off camera today. Hopefully I'll be able to get back on tomorrow. Meanwhile, let's see what happened on this day in history. This time of year, of course, there's lots and lots of baseball news. Goodness, I think there could be an entire half-hour version of this day in history just on baseball news. I'll mention a few, but not all of them. Also, I noticed this was the first day on air for a surprising number of TV stations in several different years. Like the baseball news, there were enough that I couldn't mention them all. Other than that, let's get on with it. Beginning in 1519, Portuguese navigator Ferdinand Magellan set sail from Spain in an effort to find a western sea route to the rich Spice Islands of Indonesia. In command of 5 ships and 270 men, Magellan sailed to West Africa and then to Brazil, where he searched the South American coast for a strait that would take him to the Pacific. He searched the Rio de la Plata, a large estuary south of Brazil, for a way through. Failing, he continued south along the coast of Patagonia. At the end of March 1520, the expedition set up winter quarters at Port St. Julian. On Easter Day at midnight, the Spanish captains mutinied against their Portuguese captain, but Magellan crushed the revolt, executing one of the captains and leaving another ashore when his ship left St. Julian in August. On October 21st, he finally discovered the strait he had been seeking. The Strait of Magellan, as it has become known, is located near the tip of South America, separating Tierra del Fuego and the continental mainland. Only 3 ships entered the passage. One had been wrecked and another deserted. It took 38 days to navigate the treacherous strait, and when ocean was sighted at the other end, Magellan wept with joy. He was the first European explorer to reach the Pacific Ocean from the Atlantic. His fleet accomplished the westward crossing of the ocean in 99 days, crossing waters so strangely calm that the ocean was named Pacific, from the Latin word pacificus, meaning tranquil. By the end, the men were out of food and chewed the leather parts of their gear to keep themselves alive. On March 6, 1521, the expedition landed at the island of Guam. 10 days later, they dropped anchor at the Philippine island of Cebu. They were only about 400 miles from the Spice Islands. Magellan met with the chief of Cebu, who, after converting to Christianity, persuaded the Europeans to assist him in conquering a rival tribe on the neighboring island of Mactan. In fighting on April 27, Magellan was hit by a poisoned arrow and left to die by his retreating comrades. After Magellan's death, the survivors in 2 ships sailed on to the Moluccas and loaded the hulls with spice. One ship attempted unsuccessfully to return across the Pacific. The other ship, the Victoria, continued west under the command of Basque navigator Juan Sebastian de Elcano. The vessels sailed across the Indian Ocean, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and arrived at the Spanish port of Sanlúcar de Barrameda on September 6, 1522, becoming the first ship to circumnavigate the globe. On September 20, 1806, after nearly 2.5 years spent exploring the western wilderness, Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery arrived at the frontier village of La Charrette, the first white settlement they had seen since leaving behind the outposts of Eastern civilization in 1804. In 1814, Star-Spangled Banner was published as a song, lyrics by Francis Scott Key, tune by John Stafford Smith. In 1833, Charles Darwin arrived in Buenos Aires after traveling through the Argentine interior with gauchos. In 1850, slave trade was abolished in the District of Columbia, although slavery was allowed to continue. In 1878, American writer Upton Beale Sinclair was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Starting at age 15, he earned money writing dime novels, which paid his way through New York's City College and Columbia University. He married in 1900 and also earned money in writing journalistic pieces. An assignment on meatpacking plants led to his best-selling novel, The Jungle, in which an idealistic immigrant goes to work in the Chicago stockyards. Unable to find a publisher for his book, he ultimately published it himself. The novel's gritty portrayal of labor abuses and unsanitary conditions led to the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. He wrote several more well-known novels, although none were as successful as his first. In 1881, Chester Arthur was inaugurated on this day, becoming the third person to serve as president in that year. The year 1881 had begun with Republican Rutherford B. Hayes in office. Hayes served out his term and officially turned over the reins of government to James A. Garfield in March of 1881. Just 4 months into his term, on July 2nd, Garfield was shot by a crazed assassin. Garfield struggled to recover but passed away on September 19, and Arthur was then inaugurated the next day on September 20th. Interestingly, and a little frightening, the assassin wrote to President Arthur from prison, taking credit for getting Arthur into office. Well, sorta, but yikes. 1904, Orville and Wilbur Wright fly a circle in their Flyer 2. Wright, who with his brother Orville is credited for inventing the first airplane, made a complete circle in 1 minute and 16 seconds in the Wright Flyer 2. 1906, Cunard Line's RMS Mauretania was launched at the Swan Hunter and Wigham Richardson shipyard in Newcastle, England. In 1919, Babe Ruth tied Ned Williamson's major league mark of 27 home runs. In 1920, American actress Frances Heflin, with credits for All My Children and The Skin of Our Teeth, was born in Oklahoma City. In 1920, American cartoonist Jay Ward, who worked on Rocky and Bullwinkle, was born in Berkeley, California. In 1926, Bugs Moran attempted to assassinate Al Capone in a drive-by shooting, but failed. In 1929, American comedian and actress Ann Mira, mother of Ben Stiller, was born in Brooklyn, New York. In 1934, the stunningly beautiful Italian actress Sophia Loren was born in Rome, Italy. In 1941, Warner Brothers cartoon character Sylvester J. Pussycat Sr. was created by Fritz Frelling of Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies. Sylvester first debuted in Notes to You. In 1946, the first annual Cannes Film Festival opened at the resort city of Cannes on the French Riviera. The festival had intended to make its debut in September of 1939, but the outbreak of World War II forced the cancellation of the inaugural Cannes. In 1952, scientists confirmed that DNA holds hereditary data. In 1954, the first Fortran computer was run. In 1954, KETC-TV Channel 9 in St. Louis, Missouri, this was a PBS station, began broadcasting. In 1955, Willie Mays is the seventh player to reach 50 home runs in a season. In 1961, Roger Maris hit home run number 59 and barely missed number 60 in game 154 of the season, and the Yanks clinch pennant number 26. 1963, President Kennedy proposed a joint U.S.-Soviet voyage to the moon. In 1964, Paramount Theater in New York City presented The Beatles. In 1967, actress Kristen Johnson, who played Sally in the TV show Third Rock from the Sun, was born on this day. In 1969, the virtual band Archie's single Sugar Sugar hit number 1. In 1971, Hurricane Irene became the first hurricane known to cross from the Atlantic to the Pacific, where it was renamed Hurricane Olivia. In 1973, Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs in a Battle of the Sexes tennis match. The mixed-gender tennis match between top tennis players Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King was held in Houston, Texas, after Riggs won another mixed-gender match against Margaret Court earlier in the year. The matches were prompted by Riggs' comments that even at the age of 55, he could beat any female tennis player. King beat Riggs and took home the $100,000 prize money. The match was and still is one of the most viewed tennis matches on television. It was watched by about 90 million people around the world. In 1977, Socialist Republic of Vietnam was admitted to the United Nations. In 1980, a plaque was dedicated in Thurman Munson's memory at Yankee Stadium. In 1984, The Cosby Show aired for the first time. This was a popular television sitcom which followed the lives of Brooklyn-based African-American family called the Huxtables. The show ran for 8 years on NBC and was largely based on the stand-up comedy of Bill Cosby, who played the role of Heathcliff, Cliff Huxtable, the father in the show. 1985, Walt Disney World celebrated their 200 millionth guest. In 1990, both East and West Germany ratified reunification. In 2001, American President George W. Bush declared war on terror. The global military campaign against terrorism was first declared in the aftermath of the September 11 attacks in the United States. The phrase was used by President Bush in a speech given to the United States Congress. In 2011, the official U.S. military policy of don't ask, don't tell ends. This policy was instituted by the administration of Bill Clinton in 1994. Under the policy, openly gay personnel were not allowed to serve in the United States military, but they could serve as long as they did not reveal their LGBT status. And that's all I have for you today, September 20th. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share this if you found it interesting. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Come on now, you can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. Good girl, good girl. Okay. Don't make me squeak that pig again. Mean mama.